Long shadows were cast across the winding country road by the late afternoon sun. A gentle breeze stirred through the tall grass, and the distant chirping of birds resonated in the air. Yet, amid this serene landscape, a heartbreaking scene was unfolding. In the back seat of an old blue sedan, a small brown dog sat with his tail wagging excitedly. His name was Max, a loyal Labrador mix who had always relished car rides. To him, such moments signified adventure, parks, lakes, or even just a fun drive around the neighborhood. However, today felt different. An uneasy tension lingered in the air, something he couldn't quite grasp but could feel nonetheless. The car eased to a stop on a deserted road bordered by trees. The father, a man in his early 40s, turned to his wife in the passenger seat, while their young son, barely 8 years old, sat in the back with Max. "Are you sure we have to do this?" the boy asked, his voice trembling as he wrapped his small arms around Max's neck. Burying his face in the dog's fur, the mother sighed, turning away as guilt clouded her features. "We don't have a choice, sweetheart. We can't take him with us." "But he's family," protested the boy. Tightening his grip on Max, the father hesitated before releasing a sharp exhale. "We can't afford to take care of him anymore. We're moving to an apartment where no pets are allowed." Before the boy could argue further, the father exited the car and opened the door. "Come on, Max." Max hesitated momentarily, his eyes moving between the open door and his past. Why was he being left behind, the child holding him? But when the boy reluctantly released his grip, Max jumped out, believing it was merely another stop on their journey, maybe a walk or a picnic. The father quickly closed the door. "Drive," the mother whispered. The boy turned around, his eyes filling with tears. "No. Wait. We can't just," but the car had already started moving. Max barked once, then twice. Tilting his head in confusion, he wagged his tail, waiting for them to call him back. But instead, the car sped away, leaving a cloud of dust in its wake. Suddenly, the realization struck him like a thunderclap. His family wasn't coming back. He took off running, his paws kicking up dirt as he chased after the car with all his might. His lungs burned, his legs ached, but he couldn't stop. He barked desperately, pleading for them to halt, to turn around, to take him home. But the car vanished over the horizon. Max stood alone in the middle of the road, panting heavily, his chest rising and falling rapidly. His ears drooped, his tail hung low, and his body trembled with exhaustion. He let out a soft whimper before turning back to where they had left him. He lay down beside the road, his head resting on his paws. He didn't understand. He had always been a good dog, protecting them, playing with them, loving them with all his heart, and now he was all alone. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of his family far away. He closed his eyes, listening to the distant sounds of the world around him. But in his heart, he continued waiting for the only thing that mattered, his family to return. That first night was the hardest. As the sun sank below the horizon, the once warm air turned chilly. Darkness enveloped the road, and the sounds of crickets filled the silence. Max curled up on the patch of dirt beside the tree where his family had left him. His body shook, not from the cold, but from the emptiness within him. Each time headlights appeared in the distance, his ears perked up, and his tail flicked hesitantly. Maybe they had realized their mistake. Maybe they were coming back for him. But time and again, the cars passed him by, their bright lights fading into the night. By morning, hunger gnawed at his stomach. He wandered to the side of the road, sniffing at patches of grass and discarded wrappers. A few cars slowed down as they passed, but none stopped. None called his name. Days stretched into weeks, and Max remained in the same spot, waiting. The residents of the nearby village began to notice the lonely dog by the roadside. A kind old woman named Maria was the first to approach him. She brought him a bowl of water and some bread. But Max would not move from his post. "You're waiting for someone, aren't you?" she said, kneeling beside him and reaching out with her wrinkled hand to stroke his fur. Poor boy. Other villagers began to help too, A farmer named Daniel left scraps of meat on a rock for him every morning, while a schoolgirl named Sophia brought him a blanket before winter set in. Everyone in the village had heard about the loyal dog who refused to leave, but no one could convince him to budge. Through sweltering summers and icy winters, Max stayed. He weathered heavy rains that left him soaked and shivering, braved the snow by curling up tightly to keep warm, and survived blistering heat, panting in the shade of the tree that had become his home. Wild animals roamed the night, but Max never abandoned his spot. The villagers grew to admire his unwavering loyalty, calling him Hope because he never gave up waiting. Yet, with each passing year, his hope waned. His fur lost its shine. His eyes grew weary, and his once strong legs trembled with age. But even as his body weakened, his heart remained steadfast. With every sunrise, he lifted his head, scanning the road. With every sunset, he lay down again, heartbroken but still hopeful. And so, for 4 long years, the dog waited. For years had passed since Max was abandoned, yet he remained in the same place. His body had become frail, his once shiny coat now matted and dull, and the lively spark in his eyes had dimmed. However, the hope within them had never fully flickered out. The villagers, who had long admired his loyalty, became increasingly concerned. One evening, as the sun cast an orange glow over the quiet road, a woman named Emily drove by and noticed the old dog lying beneath the same tree. Unlike the other passers-by, she felt not just pity, but curiosity. Why was this dog still here? That night, Emily spoke to Maria, the old woman who had been feeding Max for years. He's been waiting here for so long, Maria said, sadness lacing her voice. No matter what we do, he won't leave. We don't even know who abandoned him. Emily, a volunteer at a local animal rescue center, felt Max's story tug at her heartstrings. She decided to investigate. The next day, Emily took several photos of Max and posted them online, hoping someone would recognize him. Then she began asking around. After a week of searching, she found a clue. An old neighbor from a nearby town remembered a family with a dog resembling Max. They had lived in that abandoned house on the hill. The neighbor explained, but they had moved away years ago, leaving everything behind, even the dog. Emily's heart sank as she drove to the house, now overgrown with ivy and clearly uninhabited for years. She pushed open the broken gate and stepped inside the yard, where the silence felt eerie and the house seemed forgotten by time. There was no indication that anyone had ever intended to return. Clenching her fists, Emily felt frustrated. How could someone abandon such a loyal companion? She understood that Max would never grasp the truth, but she had to confront it. His family was never coming back. That evening, she sat beside Max under the tree, and he looked up at her with tired eyes, his tail weakly thumping against the ground. You've been waiting for so long, she whispered, running her fingers through his fur. But they're not coming back. Max merely blinked before turning his gaze back toward the road, as if still expecting a car to come. Tears welled in Emily's eyes. She had rescued countless dogs, but never one with such unwavering devotion. You don't deserve this. Her voice broke. You deserve love. She realized she couldn't force him to leave, but she made a decision. If Max refused to move, she would stay with him. For the first time in 4 years, Max was no longer waiting alone. For the first time in 4 years, he had someone by his side who wasn't just passing by. Emily made it a routine to visit Max every morning and evening. Sitting next to him under the tree, she brought fresh food, clean water, and even a soft blanket. Yet, despite her love, Max continued to refuse to leave. He would eat and drink but would lower his head and look back at the road whenever Emily tried to coax him away. Winter arrived, harsher than ever. The freezing winds howled along the empty road, and frost coated the ground. Max curled up tightly under his tree, his aging body struggling against the cold. One night, a heavy snowstorm swept through the village. Knowing that Max would suffer outside, Emily rushed to him in the storm. Max, please come with me, she pleaded, wrapping a thick blanket around him. You won't survive out here. But Max merely gazed up at her with those same weary, longing eyes that had spent years waiting. Emily's heart broke. She realized that if he endured another winter like this, he wouldn't survive. The next morning, when she returned, Max lay motionless. Panic surged through her as she dropped to her knees, gently shaking him. "Max, wake up." He didn't move, and tears blurred her vision. Had she been too late? Had his body finally given out? Then a weak tremor ran through him. His eyes fluttered open, and he let out a soft whimper. Emily exhaled shakily. Knowing the truth, Max had reached his breaking point. She had to act before it was too late. Without hesitation, she lifted him into her arms. He was lighter than he should have been, his body frail from years of suffering. He didn't resist. He was too weak. "I know you don't want to leave," she whispered, holding him close as she carried him to her car. "But I can't let you die out here." Max didn't fight her. He rested his head against her arm, his body too exhausted to protest. As she drove away, she glanced in the rear-view mirror. Seeing the empty road where Max had spent the last 4 years of his life, it was the first time he was leaving that place. Emily prayed it wasn't too late to save him, driving as fast as she could. Her hands gripped the wheel tightly, while Max lay curled in the passenger seat, his breathing shallow and his body limp. Every so often, she reached over to stroke his fur, whispering, "Just hold on. Max, you're safe now." She pulled into the veterinary clinic, rushing inside with Max in her arms. The vet, Dr. Harris, sprang into action. "He's severely malnourished," Dr. Harris noted as he examined Max, "and he's suffering from exhaustion and exposure to the cold." Emily anxiously watched as they placed Max on a warm blanket, inserting in 4 to give him fluids. She had seen many dogs recover from horrible conditions, but something about Max's plight tightened her chest. "Will he make it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Harris sighed. "He's weak, but he's a fighter. We'll do everything we can." That night, Emily remained beside Max in the clinic, refusing to leave him. She tenderly held his paw, whispering stories about all the good things waiting for him if he could just wake up. "You don't have to wait anymore, Max," she murmured. "I promise you'll never be alone again." The night passed in a blur of worry, but as dawn broke, something incredible occurred. Max's eyes fluttered open. Emily gasped and sat up straight. "Max!" He blinked slowly, letting out the faintest whimper as his tail gave a weak wag. Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she cupped his face gently. "You made it." Dr. Harris smiled upon entering the room. "Well, looks like someone has a strong reason to keep going." Max, still weak, was no longer looking toward the road. Instead, he was gazing at Emily. In the following weeks, Max regained his strength. With proper food, care, and love, he slowly began to heal, not just physically but emotionally. Then one morning, the miracle truly arrived. Emily brought Max home with her. The moment they stepped into her house, something changed. Max hesitated at the door, uncertain if he truly belonged. But when Emily knelt down and whispered, "Welcome home," he took his first step inside. After 4 long years, Max had a home again. No more waiting, no more longing, just love. The moral of the story is that true loyalty never fades, and kindness has the ability to heal even the deepest wounds. Sometimes, the family we need isn't the one we wait for, but the one that finds us just when we need them the most.